Hello and welcome to all our viewers to another episode of Chatter Putter with Anubhav. Now, on a one-play sports platforms, we typically cover all the traditional sports, the crickets, the footballs, the hockeys, the badmintons, the tennises of the world. We don't cover as much adventure sports, or at least not until now. And I think it's a real shame that we don't do so because after taking a look at Sajid Chogle's Instagram account, let me tell you, I was completely hooked and captivated by everything that he had on that Instagram account. And I'm pretty sure, this conversation will be the genesis of One Play Sports foraying into the adventure sports territory as well. And without further ado, let me welcome my guest for this conversation, Sajid Chogle, who's the professional skydiver, wingsuit flyer, base jumper. Sajid, did I miss anything or did I cover all the bases?
I think that's it for now, and content creator.
content creator as well, someone who's running his own startup as well. So I'm pretty sure I'm speaking with a very multifaceted individual.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Lovely. Likewise, Sajid. Sajid, look, a lot of people, I'm pretty sure all the viewers who have not too much of an idea about adventure sports definitely can associate with skydiving. They have somewhat of an idea what skydiving is. They may have heard of wingsuit flying. They may have heard of base jumping. Can you perhaps shed some more light on wingsuit flying as well as base jumping?
Okay, so I'll just break down how aerial extreme sports are looked at as, okay? There are the ones with free fall and there are the ones without free fall. The ones with free fall are skydiving, base jumping, and wingsuit flying. Wingsuits can be flown either in a skydive jump or off a cliff on a base jump, basically. The ones without free fall are paragliding, paramotoring, basically paragliding with powered motors, etc., and hang gliding, etc. So anything where the wing is already open in front of you or above you, those are the ones without free fall. So that's the most basic explanation. Okay, to answer your question about wingsuit flying and how base jump, I mean, what's the difference between wingsuit flying, base jumping, and skydiving, right? So skydiving is the most, it's the first step towards any kind of free fall sport. So if I want to start base jumping, which is jumping off buildings, antenna, span, which are bridges, and earth, which are mountains, I still need to do a skydiving course, have at least 250 to 300 jumps. I mean, more the better, because it's a new medium. You have to get comfortable in the medium. So even if I push you in your sleep off your bed, you still need to be able to fall in the right position. So that's how the sport functions. And base jumping is, I mean, in skydiving, the technology has evolved so much that you have two parachutes. If the main fails or if it doesn't deploy correctly, or even if you go unconscious, you can still, the reserve will still deploy if you keep a device known as an AAD, an automatic activation device on. So based on the barometric pressure and the speed at which you're falling, it's doing these calculations, and it will deploy the reserve. So it's happened in the past. People have been knocked unconscious and the reserves have still deployed and saved them. So that's how safe skydiving is. Base jumping has only one parachute, so you have only one shot. So you have to be 1000% sure right from your pack job to how you're exiting the cliff, your body position, etc., your state of mind including. Wingsuit is just extra fabric added onto your body to give you more fly, to increase your flying dynamics, basically. So it's like a wingsuit makes you a better flying object. Without a wingsuit, I can fly my body, you can fly your body. If we add more clothing that enables us to fly or glide farther, that's basically what a wingsuit does. And I mean, if without training, they can be super dangerous.
Got it. To be completely honest, I feel a bit rattled just listening to some of the descriptions. I can't even imagine how you guys must be doing this, which is why, I'm really curious and fascinated to know more about everything that all of this entails. But tell me something. What was the genesis of your story or your journey with skydiving, wingsuit flying, base jumping? I'm pretty sure it must have been a gradual evolution, right? You probably started with skydiving, then moved on to perhaps base jumping. But when did this kick in? How did it start? What's the community like in India that perhaps influenced you to take this up?
So, I mean, I'm sure when we are kids, right, everyone is fascinated with the sky. Every child wants to fly or wants to experience flying. We're fascinated by airplanes and, even birds for that matter. somewhere subconsciously, I had that in my head. In fact, when I became a skydiver, a friend of mine, she shared. Remember in school we had these notepads we used to exchange when we're graduating, and you'd write what do you want to become when you grow up, all that nonsense when you're like 15, 16-year-old. And I had written, I want to be a skydiver. I had no clue I had written that. Okay, I didn't even know like a professional skydiver existed back then.
And you had never done skydiving at that point, right?
Of course not. I mean, the only exposure I had was Discovery and Nat Geo, because that time we didn't have like streaming services. I'm like 83 born, so it's like back in the days. So somewhere in my head, it was always there. And growing up, I grew up in Bombay mostly, and I did my engineering, etc. over here. So I had to. I mean, in your family, you're given roles. Like Sajid's going to be either a doctor or an engineer. His brother's going to do this, things like that. And I mean, I did enjoy my studies and all that, but sports was never, or outdoor activities was never on my agenda. It was like no one had put it on my agenda, or no one said, okay, you know what, there is something like this also. So I was always into my books. I was always into my studies. My hobbies were like fine arts and stuff. So, I mean, the whole designing aspect comes from there as well. So somewhere when I got the opportunity to head to USA for my master's in 2007, I went with the mindset that I want to explore as much as possible over there. And that's where the journey started. It started gradually. Like I graduated from Syracuse, did my master's in telecommunications. In fact, I graduated early because my internship converted into a job. The great thing was like you start earning in dollars and then life just changes, right? And so I moved to Philadelphia. My job was in Philly, and Philadelphia is such a beautiful city that there's a river flowing through it cuts through the city. You know where the Rocky statue is? I don't know if you remember.
It's close. It's close to Penn's campus, right? Isn't it?
Exactly. So where Rocky runs the stairs, so I used to live very close by over there, and on weekends, 5 a.m. to 11, they would shut like a 10-kilometer loop around the river. You can skate, you can run, you can do whatever, cycle, and there's no vehicles on the road. So beautiful thing, every weekend they would do that. And
I'm guessing that area must have been like absolutely packed to the rafters, given the fact that this was probably 2008, 2009, a lot of people unemployed as well. So probably lots of people out there, numbers.
That's I mean, that was there, but then it's like a very chill community out there. Also, Philly is not like New York, so that's the good thing about Philly. Like it's a major city, but then you have it's very slow paced. Bombay, like New York and Bombay, you can compare, they're the same, where everyone's just looking down and walking to their job or home or wherever they're going. Whereas Philly, you can still stop and have a conversation with anyone on the streets.
Right.
That's what I really loved about the city, and I do miss it. So it started with running around the river. So it was a 10-kilometer loop. Slowly that converted into long distance cycling. That converted into dragon boat racing. So the river, Schuylkill River, because Penn's campus, they had their rowing team and all. They also had, in fact, Philadelphia's Dragon Boat Racing Club were like world champions for quite some time. So I started training with those guys, and so it was like one thing led to another, and then finally someone is like, "Hey, Sajid, you've been doing all these things, and you're going crazy with all this. I think skydiving is your thing." I'm like, "Yeah, I've done the tandem jump, and I mean, I really loved it." They're like, "No, you can get your license." I had no clue you can get a license to jump anywhere in the world, so that's what so there are like different levels of licenses in skydiving. A license is after like 30 jumps, and you can just travel wherever, just take a skydiving rig or a parachute system, and you can jump. You have A, B, C, D, etc. So based on your experience, you get different licenses.
Understood. So you ended up getting your licenses, right? You applied for all of them. I'm guessing you went through the rigorous training that's probably needed, right, before you get certified. After you get certified, did you get back to India and then perhaps start a community here, or join an already existing community?
So I moved back in 2011. By then I think I had done around 30 or 35 or 40 jumps. And I knew I wanted to be in this sport. I didn't know how it's going to happen in India, no idea. But I had my equipment. So one thing I did was I saved up and bought like a completely brand new parachute system. So when I moved back, I started searching online who all is skydiving in India. So it was mainly the military guys organizing camps and stuff, but they were like
Yeah.
on and off. And plus, there was nothing around Bombay. So I got in touch with some of the names that I saw online on Red Bull, etc. And some of them guided me well, but then there was no real uh, full-time skydiving activity happening over here. So I would have to buy tickets and fly either to Dubai or to Thailand, and then continue my training over there. Luckily, some of my instructors from USA, I found them in Dubai. So it was like a fun place. And Dubai was started somewhere around 2010, 11, like 11, 12. It was still new. So when I used to jump over there, there was nothing, just a small tent. And our landing area were the sand dunes. So we would actually land inside, shin deep sand,
Wow.
desert sand. Yeah. And it was actually nice and forgiving, because when you're learning, it's super soft, and even if you crash land, you're still okay.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Then it started growing and evolving into what it is right now. Thailand was also super fun, lovely people, nice community out there. So then I realized this is not sustainable in the long run, considering I'm trying to restart my life in India again, and figure out what I want to do for work. I thought about getting into skydiving full time, but then I'm like, do I really want to mix my passion with making it my job? Because many of my instructors told me it's not the best idea. If you like it as a passion, as something you enjoy doing, maybe converting it into a job right now may not be the best idea. So I stayed away from that idea for a while. Then the biggest trip that I did was in 2016. So until then I saved again. Because now I no longer was earning in dollars. It was, rupees, and then it gets crazy. So yeah, I saved up till 2016. I told my, then business partners, like, hey guys, I need to do this. So they're like, yeah, cool. You can go ahead. So for 2 months, I left for California and Florida. And I just knocked out almost 180, 200 jumps in those 2 months.
Brilliant, brilliant. So these are, I'm guessing, multiple jumps on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
What is that?
You
Jumps on a
average,
daily basis.
yeah. So on a good day, you can easily do up to 10 jumps. And an average would be around at least 4 to 5 jumps a day.
Fantastic, fantastic. So look, I'm pretty sure all the viewers who are watching this, right, who are listening to you, probably have this question. So if I want to get started, right, I'm a complete beginner, I'm a complete rookie, I'm in India.
Yeah.
What do I do? Whom should I contact? Should I DM you on Instagram? What should I be doing to get my journey off the ground?
You're always welcome to DM me on Instagram or wherever you find me. See, the thing about India is, or let me tell you about skydiving first. You need a community to run the business, okay?
Yeah.
If you're running the business just from a monetary point of view, you have to be a tandem center. Tandem is where you're attached to another instructor and you jump together. So it's like a one-time jump, check your bucket list and done, right? But if you want to be a licensed jumper, you have to keep doing it. You have to keep training and stuff. So for that, you need that kind of infrastructure. But you can't just have a fancy infrastructure and no one's coming and jumping. It's a waste. There's no business happening there. So it's like a chicken egg problem if you look at it. I mean, my agenda after moving back has been to educate more people to get into skydiving, explain the nuances about the sport, etc. Tell them where they can start and then how they can continue. See, the problem is, because it's an expensive activity, many people are not able to sustain long run. They might even get their early licenses, but they're like, I don't want to put in more money into this. I would rather save up for marriage or buying a house or whatever. I made a decision that this is what I want to do and this is what I will keep doing. So my life revolves around all these things. So that is, these are the, considering Indian society, these are the basic problems that I come across. The cheapest, right now, the cheapest place to skydive in the world would either be USA, drop zones in USA, Russia, maybe France. where you can do like for dirt cheap, and you can live for dirt cheap over there. You can just camp out, stay in a tent, unless you want to stay fancy and all that. You can still do that as well. That's what I do now. So now every year I usually travel to Norway and Sweden, and that's where I jump a lot. The cool thing about these Scandinavian countries is, although they are expensive, if you look at the euro, I mean, if you look at the cost of food and all that stuff over there, the cool thing about these countries is you can take a tent and camp anywhere and stay anywhere. And I usually stay like that. I've never stayed in a hotel over there.
Makes sense.
So that's how I have been able to sustain it. And of course, getting into base jumping now, where I can just find a cliff either in the Sayadris, or I've never jumped off a building in India. I've jumped off in Malaysia. That's why the t-shirt. So it just makes it slightly more sustainable in the sense, like I can just go find a bridge, find a mountain, find a paramotor. Like now, that's something I've started doing in India. Again, coming back to skydiving, there is a drop zone in India. I mean, there are on and off drop zones in India. There is one in close to Delhi, Narnaul, I think. It's called Sky High India. So if you want to experience skydiving and you don't want to travel outside, then that's the place for you. There is one that's supposed to start in Telangana, but it's just stuck under red tape and all that. So hopefully once that clears out, we'll have another drop zone. There were few years back, there were quite a few, like Lonavala had one, but then that Farhan Akhtar had started it with his team from Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara guys. But then that got shut. See, the problem is, like, you're not getting as many people as you want to keep the engines running. You have to pay the pilot, you have to pay the plane fees, you have to pay the fuel fees, you have to pay the parking fees. Like, there's multiple costs involved.
Understood. And we'll talk about some of the points or some of the ways in which we can perhaps maybe subsidize some of these costs, maybe corporate sponsorships. So we'll get to that. Staying with the topic of locations, Nandini Garg here asking you, what is your dream location in India to base jump from?
Nandini, I'm still exploring India. In fact, I've jumped in the Sayadris once. I've jumped in Himachal Pradesh once, and both were super exciting. So there are quite a few of pinnacles and mountains, or like cliffs in Sayadri, which I know of because I used to rock climb, and like my community, my friends have been rock climbing a lot as well. Those are something I would definitely target. So I don't really have a dream location right now, but maybe, I mean, the Himalayas are always a dream, although they become like slightly technical since the air is more rarer over there. I mean, it's high altitude jumps, right? So your flying dynamics, your aerodynamics, everything change over there.
Brilliant. And earlier on in the conversation, this was during the initial few exchanges, you were talking about some of the fundamental differences between base jumping and skydiving. You mentioned that with skydiving, you have a backup, right? So even if you're knocked unconscious, you can still, the backup kicks in.
Yeah.
You mentioned that in base jumping, you have no backup. Why is that the case?
Okay. So here's the thing, right? Like, base jumping, you have the amount of altitude you have is much lesser. Like, consider a 200 to 300 foot base jump. Okay, 300 feet is almost a 30-storied building. So you can look at any tall building in Bombay. 30 is like a decent size. I would jump from. I mean, I've jumped from that height. So from 300 feet, you'll probably hit the ground in maybe 5 seconds or something. Like, as soon as you jump, you're gonna like splatter in like 5 or maybe lesser than that, right? So you don't have time for you to figure out, oh shit, my main has failed. What do I do now? Deploy my reserve. There is no time. Okay. The other problem is, say I'm jumping in Norway, where the cliffs are 1 kilometer high, 3,000 feet high. My splatter time is around 25, 26 seconds maybe. In that time, it's like a mini skydive. I have a lot of time now to figure out, oh, okay, I can, maybe dump my main and deploy my reserve. The problem is, there is a huge issue of your reserve entangling with your main.
Okay.
So and this is like all through research, through data. So even now we track if there is a fatality, if there is an accident. There's a base jumping group which tracks all these accidents, so that there is a learning out of these, and people don't commit the same mistakes again. In fact, there's a saying in base jumping, like if you're going to die base jumping, die epic. Like someone has to learn out of your thing. Don't die the same old way, because then no one has, you haven't really learned anything.
Understood. And any statistics that you have in handy in terms of some of the fatalities that you might be seeing in base jumping?
I don't, the statistics are out there. I haven't, I stay away from this.
Got it. But talking about the reality of our own mortality, Akanksha Joshi asking you, have you ever been scared of a jump or a situation when you felt that the jump hasn't quite gone according to plan?
Yes, Akanksha. So in fact, the jump in Malaysia was pretty terrifying, because, when I'm jumping off the cliffs in Norway, I'm telling you, like 3,000 feet is super high, like big boulders, of like maybe 2-3 story size of a building size boulders look like pebbles. So you can't perceive that over there. So you can just jump, focus on your flight, and deploy your parachute. Very comfortable. But when you're on top of a building, even a 40-story building, you can actually see the ground like right there. And that is a scary feeling. And that is something you have to train your mind and, calm down, breathe, relax, and then do your jump. One jump that didn't really go as planned was the Himachal jump, because I didn't actually pay complete attention to the landing area. I thought the landing area was decent enough, but I misjudged it actually by just like 3-4 feet maybe, and I crashed into a rock. So luckily I didn't break any bones or anything, but I did have like minor issues.
Understood. And you spoke about some of the factors that are involved, some of the factors that you have to take into account before you make the jump, right? Venkat here asking you, do you have a checklist before you base jump? What are some of the things that you look at? How do you prepare, not just mentally, but how do you prepare yourself, your physical location, before you actually take that plunge?
Venkat, any kind of a flying activity, right? Venkat, and to everyone, you definitely have to do a checklist. It's like a plane pilot, a Boeing plane pilot, for example, taking off. Him and the technical engineer, they go through a checklist. Okay, are the gears on? Are the flaps working? Is the tail working, etc. Same thing for base jumping. We are constantly checking everything, right from our pack job to how certain things are put in place, how the clothing that we are wearing, in fact, anything like that's dangling, like the zippers that you use, or the stops that you have on your bags. If that's dangling, that can be a hazard, because if I'm deploying and that goes through that, the deployment wouldn't happen successfully, and it will be fatal. So minor things like these can cause an issue. So we are always checking all our equipment, etc. And of course, there's also a mental checklist. Like once I do my pack job, there is no way for me to see what I did inside. So I need to be sure when I'm packing my parachute. Okay, I did this right. I did this right. So it's always a guided process, and you try to stick to the process every time. If I'm trying to bring about something new the next time, I will do 1 or 2 changes at a time. I won't do too many changes, because I don't know how they will span out. As simple as that.
Understood. And Sajid, tell me something. Are you actually, legally speaking, right, are you sanctioned to actually do this alone, or you need to have at least one more person with you, such that he or she can also double check that you've actually checked off all the items in the checklist before you take the jump?
I prefer having a buddy.
Okay.
It's like, when you go for a scuba dive also, you jump with a buddy, because in case something goes wrong, they're always there. Same thing with base jumping. It's always nice to have a group or someone who understands what you're doing, because say I miss out something, right? It can happen. They're all humans in the end. If I miss out something, someone should be able to be like, hey, Sajid, there's something wrong over here. Or maybe if I have a lapse in my judgment of calculating the winds, etc., it's always good to have another perspective. So something I personally, what I do is I invite my friends in India also. Like if I'm exploring a spot, I'll invite people that I know, of course, and be like, hey, I'm doing this trip. If you're interested, join me. So I've had people from, like one of my friends from Portugal. He was here. This was in 2017. In 2017. So yeah, I just keep inviting, and I mean that's one thing I like about Malaysia, because they have formed a community of urban-based jumpers. So they just keep opening up buildings left, right, like 90-story building, 50-story building, 40-story building, and they have a cave in the middle of the city, Batu Caves. I don't know if you've heard of them. So for them, over there, at least jumping off buildings is not looked down upon. Whereas in India, if we try to do that, like people will be like, "Hey, suicide kar raha hai," ya, a bearded guy jumping, terrorist, whatever.
Understood. And you spoke about the checklist that you have to go through, right? You mentioned the phrase mental checklist as well. What's the mental checklist like?
So having the right state of mind is extremely important, and that can change quickly. Say, consider, just imagine so the Norway cliff, I'd like to give examples of Norway because that's like the most easiest way to explain, right? It's a 2.5 to 3 hour normal paced hike to reach the jump point. If I reach that point tired, like physically tired, mentally I'm not able to focus on my jump. Small things like that, where if you think there are too many doubts running in your head, you shouldn't do it. If there's too many negative thoughts coming to your head, just calm down, just back out. If you see like clouds coming over there, because you're like literally in the clouds over there, if you see clouds are coming and that's playing on your mind, don't do it. So I mean, I've jumped through a 3-second cloud layer. So basically I'm free falling for 3 seconds.
Wow.
Without knowing where I'm going. Of course, I know my body position is right and I'm going straight. I was confident enough, but that's a decision I had to make, and just tune my mind. Hey, we can do this. If it was 8 seconds, I wouldn't do it, because that's too much. Like anything can happen in that then.
Understood. And so interesting. Look, this might be a very rookie question, right? You talked about how for a 3-second period, right, you were in complete free fall, right?
Yeah.
I thought for the entirety of the jump, right, you're in free fall. So how much are you consciously navigating yourself while you're actually falling down? How much are you steering yourself? What are some of the, what exactly do you have to do while you're in free fall?
Right from the point you exit, right? Like in fact, while exiting also, if I'm doing a standing exit or a running exit, you need to ensure that your exit is also going well. Because for example, if I go, and just to clear that question out
and
first.
Exit here being the moment you launch yourself from the cliff.
Yeah. So you are extremely maneuverable. Like your body is extremely maneuverable in air. That happens when you reach subterminal or terminal velocity. It happens when air particles are hitting you. It's like you swim in water because you have water molecules around you, so you can push them and you're swimming, right? If you're in vacuum, you can't really do that. You can't push. You need something else, like a gas or something to push you away, like what you see in space movies. In air, once you exit, those first few seconds where air is not yet hitting you at full speed, is where your body, if you tumble, if you go head down or something, you will stay in that position. And to get out of that position will take some time. From a high cliff, it is still safe and forgiving. Off a building, if you do that, you will kill yourself easily, or you'll open your parachute into the building, or something weird can easily happen.
But can you change your position once you've hit terminal velocity? Because the way I'm looking at this, right, based upon my class 8 understanding of physics, right, you're falling down initially, right? There's immense amount of acceleration that you have, right? But as you keep going down, right, the closer you get to terminal velocity here being you going down at zero acceleration, right? So you're going down at constant velocity. That's when the upward and the downward forces completely cancel each other out, right? So I'm guessing that's once you hit that stable velocity or the terminal velocity, that's when you probably have a lot more scope to maneuver yourself, right? So even if you found yourself in a sort of awkward position, you can somewhat readjust, assuming that you have enough time to reach terminal velocity, right? Am I understanding this correctly?
That is perfect. In fact, you train to exit in such a way that your body reaches the optimal position for you to glide effectively. So the gliding actually starts from subterminal itself. You don't like if you learn better and if you progress better, you can figure out the right position from subterminal velocity itself and then move into terminal. In fact, like the jumps in Lauterbrunnen in Switzerland most of them are like subterminal. In Norway, most of the jumps are terminal. So yeah.
Fascinating, dude. So tell me something. When you're going through the courses that you're doing, right, before getting licensed, before you're getting a certification, what is the training like? Do you have to accumulate like a certain number of hours, a certain number of jumps? What's the criteria for you to actually get licensed?
So right now, if you're signing up with any base jumping institute or courses, you need at least 250 plus skydives, and that too with a certain type of jumps involved, which are called tracking jumps, where you try to position your body like this and fly further.
And is this location agnostic, or if you're getting a license in India, then you have to accumulate those 250 jumps in India?
It's location agnostic.
Okay.
There's no training institute, base jumping training institute in India. There are few in USA. There are few in Europe. So and maybe in Brazil as well.
Okay.
So that's the main thing. I would suggest, like, if you're thinking of, here's the backstory. I never thought of being a base jumper. That was never on my agenda since I've been skydiving in 2000. From 2010. Base jumping came on my agenda in 2016 when someone said, I saw some jumpers in USA who were going on a antenna based jump, and I asked them, hey, can I join you guys? And I saw how meticulous they were and how they were planning and executing the whole thing. And it was a very hush thing because not every place in USA is legal to base jump.
Okay.
And especially antennas, because you need special, you either need permissions or you just like sneak into the region. You need like someone will pass you the keys to the antenna, like if you have friends and stuff.
And what does antenna mean here?
Like any kind of a telecom antenna or
okay.
Yeah, electrical antenna also, but you just have to be super careful. So I saw them, I went with them and I saw them jump, and everyone jumped successfully, and it was super fun, and the energy was like really high. So that got me interested, and that's where I met this Swedish guy who I asked him, like, hey, if I have to start, where will be a nice option where it's an easy transition from skydiving into base? Because you can skydive and then you can start base jumping like from low heights, off a bridge, 200, 300, 400 feet, etc. Or you can just go to Norway and start jumping from 1 kilometer, 3,000 feet, which is like a mini skydive. So the transition on my mind is much more easier now, The only thing that's playing on my head is like, oh shit, I have one parachute and I need to deploy it anyhow. So it was much easier for me. And many people do the other way around. Back in the days, you didn't even need to have skydives or anything, and you could start base jumping. But that's like super dangerous, because base jumping isn't just about jumping off a certain object. It's also able to fly your canopy and land in proper, like tight spots or narrow spots, etc. So most of the accidents sometimes happen during landing, like where you break your ankle or hurt your knee, etc. Break your back, maybe.
Understood. So is it true? Is this accurate when I say this? Every base jump is a skydive, but every skydive is not a base jump?
Yeah, you could say that.
Because
you can say that.
The fundamental difference here being the elevation, right? And the fact that in base jump you deploy one parachute, whereas in skydiving you have a backup as well.
Well, the purists will say base jump only holds when you jump off a building, antenna, span, which are bridges, and earth, which are mountains. In fact, I have just jumped buildings, mountains, and I haven't jumped off a bridge. I haven't jumped off an antenna, but I've jumped off a windmill. I don't know where the windmill falls in here. So yeah.
Got it. So tell me something. If I'm someone who's just a lurker, right? Maybe I don't intend on doing this, but I just plan on following what the community is up to, what you guys are doing, maybe seeing some of the videos of you adrenaline junkies. What should I be looking at? What post should I be following? Say if I want to visit maybe an area from which you guys actually like, plunge yourselves? What can I do? Can I actually view someone else doing this live?
You can. In fact, I mean, in India, it's very difficult unless you get invited by me. Uh, but
Good to know you. Nice to meet you.
yeah, I usually jump off paramotors in. I've jumped in Bombay, in Vasai. I've jumped in Maharashtra a few places. I've jumped in Chikmagalur in Karnataka. That's like the most easiest thing for you to watch because it usually happens for some event, and also there's usually a crowd that comes. Off mountains, it's very difficult because I myself don't know when I plan these things. They just happen. Like I float around the idea with few people. If someone's up for it, they join me and we just like venture out. In Europe, every year in June, there's like a huge event that happens in Norway, in a place called Stavanger, or there's a in one of the famous fjords, Lysefjord. On the cliff, you will see like at least 100 to 200 jumpers. They get like two helicopters that ferry people up, down, up, down, up, down. Not down, actually, up, up, up. And the jumpers jump, and then you come back, and then you pack, and then you fly back, and then you jump. So that's definitely. You might have seen these viral videos, where like people are jumping off in Norway. Have you come across that?
I'm not sure if Norway, but I've definitely seen videos of people doing that.
If you've seen like huge cliffs and there's a fjord down there, then that's definitely Norway. If you've seen like a meadow or a grass valley down there, then that's Switzerland.
Makes
So
sense.
those
Makes
are
sense.
the two big spots. Yeah.
Got it. And Sajid, tell me something. Look, I definitely don't want to generalize, right? But what is the psyche of someone who enjoys this, or someone who derives a thrill from this, right? Like the first word, right, hyphenated word that comes to mind is adrenaline junkie. Is there an adrenaline junkie in you? What's the psyche of this person? Because I would imagine that you have to be somewhat adventure seeking, thrill seeking, rebellious, adrenaline seeking. Are those right words to perhaps describe the community,
To be very frank,
albeit in a generalistic manner?
I don't think that's true at all. Okay, like
Okay.
if you meet me in my daily life, I am shit scared of riding on a motorbike. I am shit scared of even sitting in a car on Pune Expressway. The problem over there is you may think you're in control, but you're not. You're depending on so many other factors: the driver who's driving or riding the motorcycle, some other guy who's driving, or a truck driver who's driving. You never know who's going to come and knock you off. In my environment, in base jumping or in skydiving, everything is controlled by you. Okay. If you keep an eye on the weather, if you go through a mental checklist, if you do all those things and you ensure that everything is okay, you will be fine, you will be safe, right? You will successfully make your jump. In a car or in a bike or on a bike, that's not the case. There are too many other factors over here. And so if you the way I look at, I don't think I'm a junkie. Like, I definitely enjoy the thrill. It's like a tiny project that gets completed, and that gets successfully completed, and you enjoy the victory, right? It's like that. Of course, the risk to reward ratio is like super high. A bike rider might be feeling the same, but then that's not for me. I wouldn't do that. Like, I would not even stand on the edge of the local trains in Bombay, because I know something wrong happens, or like if a stone comes flying, or whatever, anything can happen over there. So I try to avoid all those things so that I can jump more.
Understood. So in the examples that you gave, right, I'm guessing you have controllables, but you also have quite a few uncontrollables, right? But in your case, when you're doing skydiving, there may be lots of controllables, right? Lots of factors, but I'm guessing all of the factors, or at least like the majority of the factors, are under your control. So as long as you can actually go through your mental checklist as well as whatever other checklist that you have, and you make sure that everything, you have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed, then it's within your control, right? And as soon as you complete that, you feel as if, what, this project has been completed successfully, and it's a project that comes to end very quickly, as well, as opposed to this being a long drawn out protracted affair.
Exactly. I hope I mean, I hope that answers your question. You know?
Absolutely, beautifully
Uh,
does. Tell me a bit about media coverage for skydiving events, wingsuit flying, base jumping. What's the media coverage like? I know you have quite a few of these mini clips and short videos on your Instagram, on your YouTube channel as well. But
yeah.
any companies, any media companies that might be sponsoring certain events, that might be covering certain events?
So, I mean, you know this better than I would, because any brand that would want to come into this space, they will be like, hey, you know, what is the return on investment I'll get out of this type of an activity, right?
Hmm.
I have been approached by different brands over the years, since, you know, I got to a certain level in India, and the problem I see is, uh, everyone wants it for like a shorter duration, or like temporary. It looks fancy, it looks cool. तब तक के लिए ठीक है. Somewhere I don't associate with that. I want the sport to grow. I want the community to grow. There has to be a longer story than, you know, just like ek do baar dikha liya fancy jump वगैरह. See, I keep telling people it's not just about you taking a leap and showcasing that cool jump. You know, there's so many things that happen behind the scenes. There's so many
Absolutely.
things that happen after that. Uh, if you're not supporting the ecosystem of the athlete, of the jumpers, of the community, then there's not going to be any movement of any
Right.
sorts, right?
Right.
Uh, like, to give you another example, there was a famous TV channel that approached me last year, or somewhere last year, yeah. And they said, hey, we want to cover this activity, okay? So you have to jump off a mountain or paramotor, whatever you do. And I'm like, great. What is the fee involved? They're like, nothing. You will get exposure. And I'm like, but, you know, I have enough exposure. I can create enough exposure. I don't want, you know, like, TV pe aake, it's not a big deal for me. And they're like, no, you're missing out on a big opportunity. So many eyeballs. The final statement was, TV is a dying medium. Please do this. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Then why are you in it? You know, if it's a dying medium, you have to like run, get a job or something, like do something else. So that's how it is. You know, everyone wants to try to juice you out, but like, I've been in this so long that I know how it works now. I would definitely appreciate partners who understand how the sport functions, how the people function in this sport. And my agenda has always been to educate people more about this, right? To normalize extreme sports, so that people are not thinking कि अरे ये तो you know, adventure junkie है, ये इसको तो अपनी जिंदगी की परवाह नहीं है. Yeah, I mean, I love my life. Like, I want to live every second of my life. You know, like, I want to juice it out. But everyone thinks नहीं इसको तो, और या इन लोगों को परवाह नहीं है. Internationally also, it's the same thought process, but it's not at all true. It's just people who love adventure and who wanna juice out their life. As simple as that.
Absolutely, and definitely makes for a very novel story as well. You know, I mean, I'm fascinated listening to everything that you've talked about. So what's the fundamental difference between, say, what countries like Norway, what the US are doing compared to what India is doing, and some of the aspects in which India might be lagging behind, what India can actually catch up if, you know, we stay the course, or perhaps do things that we aren't doing right now?
It's not that those countries don't have their problems. They also have their problems. Like Norway, also getting permissions can be a challenge, right? USA, most of the sites like Yosemite, which is an amazing base jumping spot, it's banned. It's illegal. It used to be legal a few years back, but then many people trashed the place, and then so they banned it. Although rock climbing, which is also an extreme sport, is still allowed over there, but base jumping isn't. So there's multiple things again that come into the picture, right? Like, for example, like, the example I gave earlier was of Malaysia, where urban base jumping has become a normal sight. You know, they building owners, or, you know, big brands, they'll invite jumpers. Hey, come, I'm giving this building to you guys. Do an activity over here. You know, it's great marketing for me. That's the way I would like to see it in India also. Like, say, someone launching a new tower or something, and they invite base jumper. It's a huge spectacle, right? But the problem over here is, अरे यार कुछ गलत हो गया तो, like, what if something wrong happens? Then what? Then we have to deal with all that thing. They don't understand that I mean, the wrong thing is associated with anything you do, like even eating too much of wrong kind of food that can also land you in the hospital. And I mean, in right now in COVID times, anything you do can land you in the hospital. So how do you I mean, you need the authorities need to be able to understand ke, acha, you know, he's a professional, he knows what he's talking about. I can see it through all the jumps that they've done, or the activities or the training that they've done. So to give another example, I forgot the title of the guy, DC, the DC of Chikmagalur. Someone proposed to him, hey, you know, you should have like a powered paramotoring activity over here, and and he also suggested, okay, I know a base jumper, he'll jump also. It's going to be a huge crowd attraction. So they just suggested that, and that took place. And the guy was like super enthusiastic, and he's like, yeah, do whatever, just do it safely, and, you know, promote it in a nice manner. So that was super successful. Something like that. Even like I did a small stadium jump in Karad in Maharashtra, and those guys were also super supportive. The whole paramotoring community was there. So there were like almost 6 to 8 paramotors in the sky, and then I jumped off one of them and landed in the stadium with few thousand people in the stadium. And that it just creates amazing awareness, you know, and people love these kind of things. In fact, I had proposed to these outdoor music festivals as well, like, hey, you know, it'll be super cool, say I jump, I carry whatever you want to be delivered, a golden mic or whatever. Because this keeps happening in USA, where they call in skydivers into football matches or rugby matches, etc.
Right. That's very funny, because, you know, I'm not sure if you've taken a look at this video. This is like a viral video on YouTube, but this must have been, I think, somewhere in South America or Brazil. There's this probably not a skydiver or a base jumper. I'm guessing like a paraglider. There was a football match, like a live football match that was taking place in a stadium, and all of a sudden, you know, out of nowhere, this paraglider comes in and lands on the pitch, and that's when, you know, play had to be stalled for a few seconds. But it was quite an amusing moment that took place.
I mean, those things also keep happening. Like, there have been a few incidents, like someone landing in cables, someone landing in, someone having a bad landing, etc. These things do happen. So you have to analyze the risk, and, you know, you need to be aware of your own skill sets also. Like, if I wasn't confident about landing inside a stadium, which is pretty big, you know, but if I wasn't confident, I wouldn't have done it. But I felt confident, and for me, it was like a cool thing.
Brilliant. And, you know, my concluding question to you, which is the $1 million question, I hope you're ready for it. So when are you inviting me to come watch you in action?
So right now there is, I mean, hopefully, I don't know when the lockdown is going to end, but in monsoon, there's not much action that will happen anyways. Although I would love to free fall through clouds. I've done that long time back in Thailand once. Maybe in October, November, that's when I start exploring the Sayadris. No international trips this year for sure.
Got it. October, November, right? So I've got my calendar. I'll just quickly make a note of it.
Yeah. Do that.
Brilliant, mate. This was fascinating. Thank you so much, man. I hope you enjoyed this.
Thanks. Yeah, it was fun.
This discussion, and hopefully the first of many more that we have on our One Play Sports networks, and maybe not just virtually, but in person as well.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you so much. Thanks to the audience as well.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for coming. And a big thank you to all of viewers for having asked us questions, as well as to those who didn't ask questions but were still keenly watching every single minute of this episode from start to finish. Thanks again for joining us for episode 8 of Chatter Patter with Anubhav. Until next time, have a good evening. Stay safe. Take care.
All right.